Good evening and welcome back to the program, the podcast, the show, whatever you would like to call it, Everyday Man of God Ministries. It is great to be here once again, as always. And as always, I thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. Now, this podcast is going to be a little different. We're going to go in a little bit different of a direction. Actually, believe it or not, it's a direction that I had wanted to take for quite a long time. I originally wanted to replace, I don't know if that's the right word, replace, but I wanted to give the alternative to the Glenn Becks and the Tucker Carlsons and the Dan Bonginos and all these conservative talk show hosts. Not looking to be a talk show host per se. And what I mean by alternative, it's not that I'm going to give you something completely different in news each week, and we're going to talk about each week as it goes by, because obviously I can't afford to do this show every day. I work for a living, as I should, and I do this. So this will be a weekly program, almost like a recap of the week that preceded us. But I've often listened to Glenn Beck or what's his name, Dan Bongino, and you tune into some conservative hosts. It's not that you want to be consumed by news, but you know, Christians, even born again Christians, real Christians, people will give me flack for that, but real Christians, those who are actually born again saved, still want to, keep up a little bit with the news, what's going on. Not that they should be completely concerned about it, but it's nice to keep up on things. And I find that the shows that I've listened to over the years, they give you a little bit of that conservative view, and we're going to talk about, I have a video coming out, I think next week I might be putting it out, about Christian conservatives, what it actually means and what it actually is, and how it's a far cry from the biblical stance. With that, and as you can tell I'm talking, so this is, again, I'm taking a different approach to this, to more of a program, and we're going to talk about the Bible, but I wanted to be from the Bible perspective, a Bible believer's perspective. What that means is we talk about the world, we talk about the Bible, but we don't talk about the world from a secular Christian point of view and then try to talk about God and spirituality and then not knowing what actually following God is and then getting confused. And that's what I find the biggest problem with these shows. We'll take Glenn Beck, for instance. He's probably the most popular out of them, along with Mark Levin. But Glenn Beck has always been pretty good at understanding what's going on in the world today over the years. But then he gets all mixed up with false stuff about the Bible and God and religion and all this, and he's just all over the map. And that bugs me when when a man like him starts to preach about, or try to preach about God and how to follow God, and he can't even find his way out of a paper bag when it comes to it, because he's all mixed up with the paganism and the Mormonism and many different things, and then the spirituality, and then there's New Ageism he's got going on in his world, so he's all over the place. So when it comes to that, it just drives me nuts, and so I wanted to create a program, as I speak quite lengthy here on it, that is for Christians to listen to that don't want to listen to all that nonsense and garbage, and things that pertain to what we want to know about. I don't care about Biden's gaps during the week. I'm not concerned about that and playing cuts of that kind of thing, or the cuts of the White House press conference. What is going on during the week that maybe we should talk about? Some of it might be in the mainstream, some of it may not be. But as we go each week, we'll see how this goes. And I am going to ask if you please subscribe to this channel, because much like YouTube there, it gets into the algorithm, and the more people subscribe to the channel, we get it out there, and we give other born-again believers an alternative to listening to other shows that really don't hit what we want to talk about or listen to in an accurate way, or as close as accurate as we can be with the news given to us. With that, I actually want to start off reading out of Matthew. Matthew chapter 24, verse 6 and 7. As soon as I begin, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. So this is your King James Bible. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines, and pestilence, and earthquakes in divers places. You know, we just had the earthquake in Turkey, which I didn't actually put it in my notes to talk about, but we had the big, I don't remember what if I say 30,000, I'm going to probably get in trouble for that. I'm not sure what the number was, and we've seen an increase in earthquakes. Some say we haven't, it's just that we have more reporting of earthquakes, which could be true. It absolutely could be true, but a tragedy nonetheless, no matter how you look at that. And you see in this verse about nations rising against nation, we're seeing a lot of that. People turning on each other, not just even right here in this country politically, stabbing each other in the back, so to speak, but it's happening. Absolutely happening. I want to go to chapter 24, same chapter in Matthew, verses 9 and 10. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations, for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. So, over in Britain, again, I didn't put this in my notes. Over in Britain, UK, whatever you want to say, they, I believe we're in Europe, a lot of different places, are trying to pass, or did pass, this Christian hate bills and anti-Christians and so forth. And be careful of that, because they're just lumping everybody as a Christian, supposedly. But we know who they're going to end up wanting to kill. But what's happening is there's a priest was praying outside of a clinic, I believe, and another person was praying on the street somewhere in England and was getting arrested. I mean, that's not really new. There was a few people in Canada, same thing happened up there. It's going to grow as time goes on. So, I mean, I can see that happening, and we need to be aware of that. And I'm still going to tell people to go out on the streets. Here in America, you can still hit those streets. Guys, you can still hit the streets out there and pass out gospel tracts and Bibles. And so what? You get arrested or you get called out. Call a friend. Make sure you got a $50 bill in your pocket, just in case. I don't know what bail is, but listen, Jesus was persecuted. He was beaten and whipped. Paul was in prison. I think you can handle it. I think you can handle it. Well, some can. Maybe not all, but some can. We're going to go to Matthew chapter 24. Still in Matthew chapter 24, verse 38. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark. What does this have to do with anything, you ask? Well, look at the world. It's craziness. Not only do we have a complete amount, a high level of violence in the world, we have all this drinking and partying and the pagan rituals going on, the drag queens in libraries, and England beating Ireland now in a drag queen parade or something like that. You know, all these things are going on. They're blind. Some chose to be blind, and that's unfortunate, but they're going about like it's nobody's business. And as if the world's not going to end. Well, as long as we fix climate change, the world won't end. It's an absolute joke, and it's a shame that these people think this way. Now, one of the stories I want to talk about was the whole FBI persecuting Catholics. I'm sure a lot of people have heard some of this, but supposedly an FBI whistleblower released some sort of internal memo that warns against radical traditional Catholics, which is interesting that they didn't just say Roman Catholics or Catholics. Radical traditionalist Catholics. Now, radical traditional, I think, can be two complete separate things, but here we are. But they were on different shows. There was one guy on Tucker Carlson, and there were other places, but their concern is basically the ideology. Well, I'm also concerned about Roman Catholicism, their ideology, and their theology, which is all terrible. But my concern is for a much different reason than they're pointing out. But I would have to say, I wonder how many times I can say but. I would have to say this. I do believe there's a far right, and not the far right I think people think and see. There's going to be a far right from the Vatican and the Roman traditional Catholicism. I think people, and I've said this for a long time, for years now, Roman Catholicism, I'm telling you, pre-Vatican II and the Persecuted Crusades. So the devil's now going, okay, we've attacked in one direction, now let's attack it in another direction. So there are devils in charge here that are doing these things and turning people against one another. So that there's a great fight and war going on against people that are completely misled and misunderstanding what's going on out there today. It's not going to be easy. I'm telling you right now. So when it comes to this, there's a guy, I guess his name was Kyle or something like that. Kyle, what's his name? Kyle Seraphin. And he had mentioned that they found some gateway in what they think is fringe Catholicism. And that fringe, and I could be wrong, but that fringe is that old Catholicism that I was talking about, the pre-Vatican style Catholicism. And that's what I've been talking about. Gotta be concerned. So, it's probably going to involve mainstream Christians too. And they're declaring them to be actual criminals in this country. And they're gonna call them potential terrorists. And don't be surprised if you won't have some certain Protestant Christians involved in the FBI. They might be part of the people who raid a Catholic place. It's all designed by Satan. He's got his little devils and minions out there. Now they talk about how they're concerned about, their what they believe about abortion rights, and they're against abortion rights, the LGBTQ, and they want to push their anti-beliefs down American people's throats. That ship has sailed. Sides have already been chosen. Some have voiced it and some haven't, but the side's been chosen. If you wonder when the end's coming, I'll tell you what, if I'm traveling from California out to, by the way, I wouldn't want to go to California right now, California to the East Coast, where I live, we're probably in the Midwest when it comes to the end. I could be wrong, we'll see. But, not only are they going after Catholics, radical traditional Catholics, then they're the radical traditional Baptist. And that's next. And then they did, because a lot of people just said Catholics. And then they're going after traditional evangelicalism. Uh-oh. And most of those three, there are some little offshoots of Baptists and a few evangelical little tiny groups that aren't really part of the bigger things. They consider themselves a Baptist, but they don't practice. And, you have all those type of things. But as a whole, notice that that's what they go after. They want to destroy Christians, which they don't understand, I think, is those are mainstream Christians. And I would have to say 90% of those mainstream Christians aren't really born-again Christians anyways. Not truly, biblically speaking. So, I don't want to talk too much on that, which I just did. So we'll move on from there. So, the other thing that happened this week after the whole the China spy balloon, I'm not really going to get into that, obviously. Everybody under the sun has talked about that. The whole China balloon and that whole scandal. But then they shot down this thing over Michigan. And I find it interesting that one of the comments made by military, and even I believe the White House actually said the same thing, they can confirm, and they're pretty sure, it's not extraterrestrial life, it's not aliens. Well, ain't that interesting? Way to spin that one. See what the devil, and what that says is that people are like, wait, why did they say it wasn't a UFO? Does that mean it was a UFO? See, the problem we got going on here is to take the eye off the ball. Satan is busy. He's taking your eyes off of what is important. That's the Bible. So we get wrapped up into these things and we forget the Bible. God. See, those who are listening tonight and you're born again, don't fret. Bad times, in the end, aren't for you. You may go through some struggles, and there may be some issues, and there may be time, but as a whole, we're not going to see the wrath of God like people will. So, I would say to any of the people that are worried about the military UFOs, if you're born again, stop worrying about the military ideas of UFOs and what they say about that nonsense, because it is exactly all that, just nonsense. I haven't seen the video of this thing. Some say it looks like a UFO. Who cares? Who cares? You don't think Satan can make something look like something? That's what amazes me. People get all wrapped up. Even Christian people who call themselves Christian go, yeah, did you hear about that? Okay. Just like a lot of Christian people who say they're really Christian, but they support Trump. Uh-oh, I'm going to offend a lot of people there. Listen, you have to understand. Satan wants you wrapped up in all this politics. Well, I have to worry about it because of my family. You don't think God can protect your family? You need to arm yourself to your teeth, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit too. There's a story we'll talk about when it comes to that. So, for me, that's my take on the UFO situation. I'm not giving it much heed. I really am not. It's been going on forever, these UFO silliness, and I'm not going to deal with it. This has nothing to do with UFOs at all, but I was just thinking about this. Did you hear about that whole thing with Chick-fil-A and some sort of cauliflower, planted cauliflower? Now, look it up. I don't know on my podcast if you can leave a comment. Well, this will be up on YouTube. Now I'm going off a little bit. This podcast will be on YouTube for a while. It's definitely going to be on Rumble. And I'm still going to go away from it. So I believe within the month, this podcast program right here on Saturday nights will most likely leave YouTube, and it'll be only on Rumble, and it'll be on Spotify and Anchor. I want nothing to do with YouTube, and somebody's going to censor me now if they hear this on YouTube. This guy's leaving the YouTube. We're just going to cancel him. You do what you got to do. People say, well, it reaches more people. Yeah, it sure does. But with the help of folks out there, if you can tell people about this channel, and I'm going to put the links into the Spotify and Anchor or something like that. I forget which one the link goes to, and you can connect there and subscribe to the channel, because it would really greatly help us reach more people. No, I'm not saying that I need $1 million this year or God's going to kill me. Well, no one's old enough for that, I guess. That was Oral Roberts, I believe. Was it Pat Robinson or Oral Roberts? Pretty sure it was Oral Roberts, and that was back in the 80s. So I'm dating myself a little bit. Well, let's be concerned about things there, huh? Okay, we're going to now move on to the... I just want to go back to the FBI Catholic thing. So, they even got Jim Jordan, he's talking to Christopher Wray about the leaked FBI MOs that suggest they may be targeting Catholics. I just want to talk about Christopher Wray for a second. Understand who Christopher Wray is. He is a, quote-unquote Christian. Okay, sounds good on the surface. He's a Christian, so he must be a good guy. Well, he's part of something called the Federalist Society. What is that, you may ask? Well, without really going into it in depth, it was basically an organization founded back in 1982. And I do not have that written down, but I actually remember the year. 1982. Well, not remember the year as I was growing up, although I do remember that year growing up. But 1982 was the year it was founded, and a lot of different people came out of it. And these are Harvard, Yale, different types of people like that. You'd be surprised at the names that are associated with this. And they're supposedly trying to stick to the Constitution, which is funny because Christopher Wray has not really done that, if you follow any of that kind of stuff. But what are they trying to do? And what do you have people like Mark Levin talking about and Mike Lee? We want to go back to the way it was, the original way, the Constitution, the Constitution, the Constitution. So this society has been involved with a lot of campaigns over the years, and Supreme Court judges. I believe 2 Supreme Justices still serving. No, let's see, Alito and, I forget the other guy's name, John something or other. I could have it wrong. But anyways, got 2 of them there. Amy Coney Barrett might have been part of that, but I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look at that again. But they want to go back to an old way. Now, I believe in tradition, as in the Bible. I believe in doing things an old-fashioned way, like living off the land and not getting a hungry man frozen dinner. So I guess it all depends on what you mean by, people often say, oh, make America great again. Oh, that just means go get slaves. Well, I can't talk for everybody, but when I think about making America great again, which, by the way, America is not going to be great again, but when I think about going back in time, I think about, families. I think about a core family, a mother and a father. I believe in God and the Bible in every home. So that's what I think of. And I'm sure that's not what the Trump organizations and those people think about Make America Great Again. Heck, he doesn't even know what he is. He's got evangelicals praying on him. He's got Catholics praying on him. He's got Methodist clan. He's got everybody praying on him. So coexist until you don't exist when it comes to praying for him. Now I know I'm going to alienate a lot of people with this podcast, and that's fine. I'm just I'm giving you things here that really relate to the state of things that aren't silly. I'm not going to get into silly things. I'm going to avoid that. Or maybe I'll make a joke once in a while. I have a lot of dad jokes, so maybe I'll talk about that. So, all right. So, listen. Another thing that's popped into the news. And I saw this briefly. I read a couple articles, but I saw this briefly pop up on one of my news feeds that just comes up. You know how you come up on your computer or your YouTube or your phone, and some little news feed pops up. And it was about Nikki Haley, not the running part. I already knew that was going to happen. I won't vote for her. I'm not even going to vote for anybody in the Republican race. What? You're not gonna vote? You're a terrible human being. Don't you know you can help change the country? Yeah, okay. I can't change what God's got in play. Remember that. But Nikki Haley, well, this is an interesting situation. Now, if you don't know much about her, she comes from a Hindu father, I think, or the mother the father's Hindu and the mother is not. And she is, or Sanskrit. Please don't email me and say you're an idiot. That's not what she was. You got the wrong Indian background. But anyway, she's not a Pentecostal or a Baptist or a Catholic or a charismatic. She's not one of your mainline Protestants or anything like that. But she considers herself a Christian, which is kind of humorous. I don't find her, well, I guess mainstream Christian just as much as Oprah Winfrey's a Christian too, so I guess that works. But what I found interesting, not surprising, but interesting, is John Hagee. Now, I've spoken about John Hagee in the past. I'm not a John Hagee fan. Never have been. Pretty much don't think I ever will be. But he opened up her launch party for a Trump campaign. A Trump campaign. Sorry, I was just thinking about how she used to support Trump. But he opened up with a prayer and stuff like that. And people say he's a religious nut and a zealot and a racist and all types of things. I don't look at a man that way at all. Or a woman. I look at the Bible. I don't care if they follow or fall into something that the mainstream likes, doesn't like, don't care. Now they follow what the Bible says. That's all that matters to me. And when I'm talking to about preachers and pastors, not political figures, because 99% of them obviously are not. But when he came out and he supported Nikki Haley, I was thinking of 1 Timothy. First thing I thought of when I was in my truck driving was 1 Timothy. And let's go to, I was going to read one verse, but let's go to 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 9. This is about guidelines for women. That's probably going to offend some women listening to this, but if you're a born-again woman, this is not going to offend you. And if you're a born-again man, this is not going to offend you. But if you're not, then it may offend you. That's not my goal. It's not like I'm hoping to offend somebody. If you're offended, you're offended. There's nothing I'm going to do about it. I can just tell you what the Bible says, and we can go from there. Guidelines for women. In like manner also, that women adorn themselves in modest apparel, with shamefacedness and sobriety, not with broided hair or gold or pearls or costly array, but which becometh women professing godliness. I don't find that Nikki Haley professes godliness. With good works. Let the woman learn in silence with all subjection. She's in politics, so there's no way she's being silent. But I suffer not a woman to teach nor to usurp authority over the man, but to be in silence. So, we now see that John Hagee has no problem with women in charge of men, which is absolutely against the Bible. So, if you had doubts or you wondered about John Hagee, I would wonder no more. He is not in line with the King James Bible. I believe he is a New King James Bible, and which I find terrible, the fact that he's got himself inside, actually, his study Bible, and I don't see it at the moment. I think it's called The Legacy. I could be wrong with the name of the Bible. I have it over there somewhere. But it's a New King James, and he's got himself and his son in there. And I'm thinking, how do you put yourself inside the Bible? That's absolutely terrible. But he's shown that he's fine with women being in charge. That's not good. That is not good at all. Now, I'm not surprised. It's not a big shocker. So, but what is she going after? So, Trump, DeSantis, and Nikki Haley are really after that whole Christian vote. That whole so-called Christian vote, the whatever it is. They play footsies with every Christian organization to get the votes that they need to. I was reading an article once that Nikki Haley still goes to the Hindu stuff. So, we know that she's not born again. How can you say that when she's married to I read one article. It says, I love how, I'm going to assume they're a leftist organization, when they point out she's married to a white man who's a Methodist. As if there are no black Methodists out there. I guess that's what that article is trying to say, that doesn't exist. So I'm not sure why the white part of being Methodist was important, but I guess it's need to be pointed out. But at least they point out the Methodist, so we know she's not born again. She's probably part of more of a United Methodist style, which, hey, you do what feels good, which is absolutely in line with the pagan way of thinking. So good luck with that. Now, I talked earlier tonight, I was going to talk about the extremist group. There's an extremist group in Australia. Now, this is, I guess they call themselves premillennium, or premillennialism, or premillennialist, or I don't know what. They align themselves with other places, but so out in a town called Wiambilla, the Australian police were ambushed by some folks, and they deemed them a religious terror attack. See what we got here? More of these religious oriented. We got laws being passed against Christians. Anyone who speaks about the God and everything that, we got to take them out. We've got the religious organization in America just backing pretty much every GOP. Well, certain ones, and then you got that split too, because you got some wacky people on the other side too, going voting for Democrats, because I think they're under the assumption that somehow if they vote for the right guy, actually a lot of them are under this assumption, they vote for the right guy or girl, somehow they're going to change the country and they're going to get America back and they're going to save America. Yeah, that's not going to happen. I don't know what Bible. They must be in either the ESV or the NIV, NLT, CSB. It's definitely not the KJV. I can guarantee you that. Now if they got those thoughts. Well, I shouldn't say that because you have people like that were around for a long time, like the Westboro Baptist and stuff like that. So you get some wackies like that. But this story, I haven't gone deeper into this, or deep enough, I should say. But it struck me as a little weird. They've had murder out in this little place before, attacks, but it's way out in the middle of nowhere. And I'm trying to figure, and I went through some articles, and it's a little suspicious to me. And they went out to the middle of nowhere. Not the extremists, the police. And were supposedly ambushed. What are they doing out there? You know, that's what bothers me a little bit. Doesn't make any excuses for them murdering anybody. They murdered. I don't care what kind of Christian you think you are, and what you're calling yourselves. You murdered 2 people. You know, I don't condone that unless they were trying to murder you. I don't understand why that happened, but I found the story strange. None of it really makes sense to me. I mean, they were on a terrorist watch list, well, an Australian terrorist watch list, if that's a thing. I don't know, but that was interesting. I'll probably do a little more digging, just out of curiosity. But again, what do you have? More and more. I mean, you've had over the years some Christian cults and a little here, a little there. But as you can see what's going on in the world, it's more and more. You see them popping up everywhere. I don't know how you can not see this coming. If you're a Bible believer, you know it's coming. But if you're just following some strange folks, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. You know, really Christian extremists, I don't care what Bible they're using, they're very much like the Catholic Crusades, the Roman Catholic Church and their Crusades, the Jesuits. It's the same thing. They're just killing people, what they feel is a threat to them. I'm not sure what scripture in the Bible that says in the New Testament to kill people if they're a threat. I'm not pretty more sure that they might. It's stumbling over my words, but I mean it's unfortunate and sad for those police officers and family. Go, oh, you're pro-police now? I'm not pro, anti. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just talking from a biblical standpoint. It's just not a good thing. Well, what about pick up your sword? The Bible says pick up your sword. You know, well, you go ahead and be a false martyr, because nowhere in the Bible does it tell you to be a false martyr. Nowhere in the Bible does it tell you go and you purposely put yourself in a situation where you can be killed so you can be a martyr. Get out of town with that. That's nonsense. You're not going to find that. It's just not going to happen. So, that's as much time as I want to spend on that story, or much time I have to spend on that. Which actually really leads into the whole the anti-government movement thing we got going on. We got and some of them are carrying Bibles, and that's the other thing too. They'll have scriptures on their signs, and you know, down with these people and down with these people, and God says, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. God saith, take wrath. I'm like, that's not what the Bible says. Although, which is funny, and I've talked about this. If you tune into my regular YouTube channels. I'm talking to both, I guess, people here on YouTube and podcast. And if you tune into the Wednesdays one, we talked about the scripture changes, and the last one we talked about was Luke and John. We talked about the difference in the Bibles, how it's amazing how the newer versions change things. So I guess when you got a bunch of new Bibles changing things in all types of different directions, yeah, I guess you're going to be a little messed up and not understand the Bible. So. And you got those newer people like the Oath Keepers and the 3%ers, and those are two newest ones, I should say, that get a lot of airtime with the whole January 6th insurrection, which not insurrection at all, but whatever. That's from a secular standpoint, or looking at it from a worldly standpoint, secular, however you want to look at it. Putting yourself in those, it's still not. I mean, even from a biblical standpoint, it's not a insurrection in no way, shape, or form. And I talked about it a long time ago, too. It's funny how we have all these people anti-government. So you have all these Christian people that are anti-government. And yet, 90% of Congress and the senators identify as Christians. Figure that out for a second. Nearly 90% of political officials, Congress and Senate, I forget the exact number. I think one was 88%, the other was 90%, but I talked about that a long time ago in one of my videos. I might have talked about it in a podcast I did a long time ago also. So yeah, Christians fighting Christians, if you think about it. See, that's the problem. Just like I talk about left and right and woke against the unwoke and so forth. Who are you fighting? Because you're both going to hell. See, that's the problem. If you're not right with God, you're still going to hell. And when it comes to Russia and China, I know I'm all over the map on that one. We talk about Russia and China. People are surprised. Okay, so here's what surprises me. Why are pundits, especially conservatives, surprised? Oh, China and Russia, they might be working together. So I guess they don't read the Bible. Do you know that Russia and China are one, right? They will be one empire. It will be a return to the old ways. The beginning and the end, the Alpha and Omega. We're going back. It's a full circle. We're going back to where it was in the beginning. And if you don't figure them apples out. As you got all these Save America preachers running around, end time preachers running around, just all types of mixed information and confusion going on. There's a what I want to talk about. I was going to talk about what's it called? Oh, the Fearless Army roll call. Now, this is some guy named Jason Whitlock, who I remember him being a ESPN or something analyst a long time ago or something. He's a sports guy. I think he has a sports talk show now. Got pretty big over the years. Claims to be a Christian and so forth, but follows sports, which, again, I'm going to talk about that again. I got to talk about that again in the future. If you follow all these worldly things, can you stop calling yourself... Because you're just as fake as the Christians that you're going out against. You're just a fake Christian. You're a false Christian just like the false Christians are in Congress. Folks, we need to pick up the King James Bible. We got to get back to the way it is. Back to basics. What's my Wednesday show called? What's it called? Whiteboard Wednesday. Back to basics. It's insane. Everybody's fighting for something. Everybody's fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. Now, oh, you don't believe in Second Amendment rights and having your own gun? I don't care if you have your own gun. I really don't care. You can hunt all day long. There's nothing wrong with that. I got no issues with that. But everyone's fighting, but nobody's fighting for the King James Bible. Have you noticed that? Nobody's fighting for that. People are fighting against it. And then you got some extremists that might use the King James, and those people are not right at all. Because true Bible-believing Christians would be following Christ, and Christ, oh, but he flipped over the money changers' tables and stuff. Oh, man. It's sad that they go this way. Let's talk about another thing that's in the news. I don't know how many days it's been going on now. Probably like 5, 6, 7 days now. This whole Asbury thing. This Asbury College. I wrote it down here somewhere. Is it Asbury University or something like that? Asbury. But it's out in Kentucky. This revival of some sort. Some people are calling it a revival. They had one in 1970 also, which was interesting. I believe they are Methodist, which was rather fascinating. Methodist. So I don't really believe, and people get mad at me, I don't believe that there's going to be these great revivals. I'm suspicious of this whole thing. I'm suspicious of what kind of spirit's moving through there, because I don't really believe it's the Holy Spirit completely. I'm not saying no one's going to get saved around the area. Someone's going, oh, you're so negative. No, I'm just a realist. Many will fall away in the end times. It doesn't. Nowhere in the Bible does it say in the end times there's going to be a great revival. It doesn't say that. If it does, please point that out to me. I'm more than happy to look at it. Excuse me as I take a drink of water. And those, if you're listening and you're out there in Kentucky or Asbury College or so forth, if you're truly trying to find Christ there and you're trying to become born again, that is fantastic and wonderful. I would suggest, though, I don't know what Bible that they're using out there. Being Methodist, they're probably using either the ESV or the CEB. Get a King James Bible. And don't let anyone tell you that it's hard to understand, because it is not. And tune in to Whiteboard Wednesdays, because we're going to talk about how it's not complicated. Get a King James Bible. Somebody once asked me, do you believe you can get saved in an NIV? First of all, you can't get saved in it, because that's smaller than you. Okay, that was a kind of a humorous joke, I guess. But yes, if you're truly calling on the name of the Lord, you absolutely can. Romans 10:13. Absolutely. But I also do believe when you become saved and born again, you know that the NIV is wrong. Now, it may take you a while to get to the Bible being King James, and you might hit a lot of roadblocks along the way. You may get a lot of people telling you, oh, that's not, well, you know, all Bibles and you the same and all the, and so you have a lot, you might go through some trouble. But thankfully, in today's world, what didn't exist when I was younger was the internet and YouTube and more access and ability to realize it was a King James Bible that you were searching the whole time, and you knew all the other ones were wrong. You just couldn't find the right one, and it's easy. Nowadays, people can get saved, and that's great. And then they go, I looked in, and what do born-again Christian believers follow? What kind of Bible? Type it into Google, and boom, all of a sudden, or DuckDuckGo, and all of a sudden, you got some information there. So, I think there's no reason or no excuse why you're not in the King James Bible, born-again believers today. It was the Bible before. And even in this revival, the Methodist revival, now I don't know what they were, in 1970, they were not using the NIV or ESV, CSB, the method at that point. They may have been using the NASB. They could have been using the NASV or ASV. As I scream out a bunch of different letters there. But you got the New American Standard Version, or the American Standard Version, which is what ASB is, which it was off of the Westcott, and it was an error. That's a wrong Bible. But there weren't all these, as many as we have now. These New Living Translations, the English Standard Version, the Christian Standard Bible, the Christian, what's the CEB, Christian English Bible? You know, you didn't have all this. New World Translation, NRSV. So if you're out in this revival that's being called out there, I would suggest that you find yourself a King James Bible, because that's where the truth lies. And if you did find and you did become saved out there and you gave your life to Christ and you're born again now, turn to the King James Bible. Because if you don't, you're going to be misled and you're going to be led astray with the other versions, the other perversions that exist. So I hope that you do hear this and you do turn to those Bibles. And I don't care where it is. And someone once said to a long time ago, do I believe anyone's ever gotten saved at a Billy Graham crusade? Because I'm anti-Billy Graham. I think he was a populist. He was part of the organizations, and he was loved by the world. The Bible talks about that, obviously. But again, if a person goes somewhere and they truly give themselves to the Lord, they can be saved no matter where they are. They can be saved in any Bible that they happen to have. But when you become saved and born again, you're going to know that you start to have questions. You have doubts, not about being saved, not at first. You'll have doubts about the Bible you're reading, and things aren't going to make sense. I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. I don't understand. And then you're going to go and ask your pastor, and you're going to go ask your priest, and you're going to ask these, whoever, your reverend, and they're going to tell you, well, let me tell you what it means. That's why they were designed that way, so you'd have to ask them. You got to keep them in business. And then they'll tell you, hey, listen, it's all the same. Just come to me and I'll explain it to you. Or, here's a crazy idea. You can get a King James Bible and it will tell you the answers. You'll read it and you're like, huh, that makes sense. Because the King James Bible does make sense. And it makes even more sense when you're saved. If you're not saved, some of it might seem a little weird. I can see that. I guess in some areas it could seem like it's strange. But when you're saved, things start making sense. Go, oh, I get what that means. I get what that means. I get what that, You go through all of that. So I want to wrap up this podcast this evening, this program. My wrap-ups usually take a while. I'm a long-winded wrap-up kind of guy. And these might actually even go longer. So this will be a weekly program. We're going to talk about the Bible, and we're going to talk about worldly events. That's what my goal was for this podcast that's on Spotify. It was going to be separate from YouTube, but and then somehow I combined them for a little while, but they will be separated. And this program, this podcast will be on exactly that, a podcast, probably both on Rumble and definitely, obviously, on Spotify, Anchor. I have to look at other outlets, other platforms where I can put it on, whether it be Radio Public, Breaker, iHeartRadio, but those things start to cost money, so I have to budget wisely and, pay attention to costs each month to make sure that I can pull it off, so to speak. YouTube, I'll still be there. I'll make the Wednesday episodes. I'll still do that. So I won't be gone from YouTube completely. So if you are on YouTube listening, I ask that on your Saturday nights, if you can start just flipping over to the podcast channel. And once I see that those numbers are starting to translate and we start getting the folks over on Saturday nights, I will discontinue it on Saturday nights on YouTube. But I'll still be on YouTube. So I'll still be teaching over on YouTube, but the channel itself, the podcast show, will be on Saturday nights on Spotify and Anchor for now, and I'll let you know which other outlets that will be out in the future. Because it is about time that we actually, I'm sick and tired of people saying, we're a Christian perspective and we're a conservative perspective, and you're not at all. You're worldly, you're involved with the world, you're not following the Bible. I'm not saying everyone's perfect, you don't make mistakes, that's not my point, but this is not a program that'll ever fall into the trap of coexist until I don't exist. That's not going to happen. So with that, thank you for tuning into this show tonight. I appreciate you tuning into the podcast, and I pray that I will see you, or I will talk to you this upcoming week, but on this program next week. God bless and have a good evening.